It started.
Hello, my name is Ashwini and I welcome you all to our Growth Fit interview series. I am the growth engineer at CustomFit.ai. CustomFit.ai is a hyper personalization platform designed from the ground up on the use cases and challenges of B2B marketers. It converts the website traffic to quality leads by dynamically changing website content to CTAs as per visitors' characteristics such as company size, industry, source, the current company they are using, etc. And also based on their past behaviors and interest. It helps businesses to understand what their users want and how businesses can help them find exactly what they are looking for. Today, we will discuss all about inbound and outbound marketing, how content is important, and what changes it makes in your marketing life. Let's welcome Corey Haines today. He's founder of SwipeFiles. I am excited to take content lessons from him today. Welcome, Corey,
Thanks
and
so much for having me.
thank you so much for joining us here. So we would like to hear about you and your journey from marketing intern to head of growth and now founder of SwipeFiles. How you started, what all challenges you faced, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so basically the story starts that I originally wanted to do finance and accounting, uh, sort of went through that, but then I also got introduced to this whole world of entrepreneurship and tech and listening to podcasts, reading different books. And then it wasn't until I actually had transferred colleges and then realized they didn't have an accounting and finance degree. So I had to choose between global business and marketing, and I chose marketing. And then once I actually got in there, I realized, oh, this is actually much more in line with sort of what I'm interested in and what I
Interesting.
wanted to do anyways. Um, that said, I have to say that traditional education, college education isn't terribly useful, especially with um, business programs, business education, just because, marketing and a lot of business changes so fast and so quickly that it's hard to keep up and actually teach useful things. But in my last semester of college, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do afterwards, trying to set myself up with something that I could maybe go full time with a company afterwards. And I ended up coming across an internship with a startup here in San Diego, where I'm based, called Cordial. And so as a marketing intern, um, and I started with them in like late February. I was their first marketing hire, and then I went for, full time with them in May once I graduated. And then I kind of call that my crash course in marketing because I did everything from LinkedIn ads to event sponsorships, to our Twitter feed to the website and conversion rate optimization. Like just did
Must
everything.
have
Really
got
got to
a
cut my
lot of
teeth.
experience then.
Yeah, oh yeah. Made it a ton of mistakes. Really learned, the hard way in a lot of things, but that's the best way to learn. And after that, ended up, so I was, again, I was interested in this whole world of tech and entrepreneurship, and I've been following Josh Pigford for a while on Twitter. And then I saw that he was hiring for a head of growth. And so actually, originally, I just sent him an email and said, hey, this is so cool, like excited for you and for the company is going. Just, I'm not applying, but like here are my thoughts on like whoever you do hire for maybe how you can think about growth and how to tackle it and just some ideas for you. And he was like, are you sure you don't want to apply? Like, just keep, I guess he liked my answer. And so I ended up applying and then got the job. And so I spent 2 years at Barometrics. And then in September of 2020, which was actually, it's coming up on a year now, which is crazy, um, left and now sort of been freelancing and spending my time on SwipeFiles, which is a community and sort of membership site for marketing.
Okay, that's great. Please tell us something about SwipeWise and like what problems you solve and what marketing philosophy you follow to keep the spirit up.
Yeah, so SwipeFiles is really born, like most things, out of my own personal need. And there were a couple of needs that I felt like weren't being met that I really wanted to see in the world. And one was sort of a master swipe file or a marketing library where I can go and pull examples and see commentary on what's working, what's not working, and just have something to go off of because one of the one of the sort of turning points for me was when we were launching the affiliate program for Barometrics, and it came time to create the landing page to recruit the affiliate partners, and I just sat on my computer and I was like, what the heck goes on a landing page to recruit affiliate partners for a B2B software company? Like I have no idea, like I'm not going to pretend to, invent something really new or genius. I just want to know what works, what other people are doing. And so I spent about a week just talking to other people, doing a bunch of research, going on other pages, seeing how other companies, designed their landing page and marketed their affiliate program, listened to podcast episodes and interviews, and then finally figured, okay, like, this is something. These are the best practices. These are the key ingredients of the landing page. I just wish someone would have, told me this from the beginning and said, hey, model after this. This is a good example. This is a bad example. Follow this one, ignore this one. And so that was one of the first things. I just wanted something to go off of, for all sorts of different marketing campaigns, because I think as marketers, one of the unique challenges compared to other business roles like product design or sales is that marketing is multifaceted. Like there's so many different types of projects that you just churn through one after the other. You have your affiliate marketing, and then you have SEO. We have CRO. We have the website. Like there's just an endless list of things that you can work on,
Definitely.
and really not a lot of concrete examples to go off of. And then the second thread was that I was really craving, as a marketing team of one, a community for me to plug in and share wins and struggles and ask questions and just have like a group to fall back on, a support group for accountability and for help. And I had joined, a few Slack groups here and there and a few Facebook groups, but didn't really feel like I was plugged in or connected to anyone. And so again, went back to my log of ideas. And after writing the teardowns for SwipeFiles for about 6 months, and it was right around the time I was leaving Barometrics, I figured, okay, I think now's a good time to maybe see if this whole, community idea has legs. And so then I launched this, private paid community for marketers, people, who do marketing for their company or for their projects, just as a place to, for a lot of marketing team of ones. There's a lot of, in-house marketers. We have agency owners and freelancers. We have, developers and founders and people who wouldn't even consider themselves marketers, but have to do the marketing and are interested in marketing. And so really it's just in a spirit of, don't reinvent the wheel, like set yourself up for success and help each other out, like for all the examples that we write, it's really just to crowdsource knowledge. And then for our interactions with each other, again, we're asking for advice, we're poking holes in each other's arguments, and we're pushing each other to do better work.
Fantastic. So you were working remotely, if I'm not wrong. We at
Mhm.
CustomFit.ai are also working remotely. So I'm curious to know what would you like to say about working remote versus working from office?
Yeah, personally, I love it. I mean, uh, I sort of got a taste of it when I was at Cordial. We would, after I think like the first year, it was sort of like a, hey, you can work from home like one day a week if you want to, And so most of us took that day on like a Friday or like a Thursday, sort of end of week, and that, sort of let me dip my feet in the water and get my toes wet on what it was like to work remotely from home. And, given especially that we work in tech, it's like the everything that we do is on our computer. And even, these days, a lot of companies are moving away from meetings, right? So like, really, what need do you have for an office? And so then, going to Barometrics, I was fully remote. That was my first true experience of remote work. And that was great because it allows a lot of flexibility. It was definitely, it took some adjusting to, but now I think that it's, the preferred way for me. I still think that there's value in being able to see people in person. Like there's nothing wrong with that at all. And I think, even I'm sort of anticipating an explosion of co-working spaces and, just like more ways for people to interact with each other, but not work in an office per se, but just work somewhere else that's not home, essentially. And I think especially now that like we really saw a big wave in remote work, and now I think we're going to see a big wave in flexible work as well, where it's not just even, full-time employees, it's more a mix of contractors and set your own hours and 4-day work weeks, and a mix of in the US versus overseas, and people from all around the globe rather than just from one country per se. So I love it. I think it's here to stay. I don't think that it's as drastic or as binary as a lot of people make it out to be, because I still think that people crave to be at home. But really, that flexibility is key. We're going to continue to see that trend keep going.
You worked with Cordial, right, as a content marketing manager. So, according to you, how much is it is important to show right content to each and every visitor of your website?
Yeah, I mean, the way that we approached content marketing there was basically how can we provide the highest level content that people aren't getting anywhere else? So instead of kind of just like copy pasting what a lot of other people are doing, and looking at, okay, here's the keywords that they're targeting, and here's the type of content that they're creating, let's go do that because it seems that's the direction that they're going. We tried to think a little bit more from first principles and create content that would actually be valuable, that that people couldn't get anywhere else. And that took a lot of research. A lot of the pieces were long. I would talk directly with customers or with partners or with industry experts, people who knew what they were talking about or had experience with whatever it was, the topic that we were writing on at the time. Actually, we did a lot of sourcing from our own team as well, which I think a lot is actually a really underrated tactic for content marketing, because there are, when you have a large-ish company, actually it's not even large, but if you have a growing startup, 10 plus people, you're going to have at least a couple people in the company that are subject matter experts on something within their field. And you can use that and you can tap them, you can ask them questions, you can extract that knowledge and put that into content that can serve your audience and be helpful for them. So yeah, I mean, I think it's huge. It's really, how do you think about who the end reader is, what they're looking for, what they can get, what they can't get anywhere else, and how can you best serve them given what you know about them.
Right. So, in your content plan and strategy, how do you include personalization and how far is it useful, according to you?
Yeah, so the extent of my personalization for SwipeFiles is I use a tool called Write Message, and it essentially allows me to personalize the calls to action around the site. And so, really, that just helps me, not serve a newsletter sign up form to people who are already subscribed to the newsletter. If people are subscribed to the newsletter, then serve them as a call to action for something else, like to start a membership or start a trial or to download something else or to join another sort of mini newsletter. Like I have the Tiny Marketing Ideas newsletter, for example, and that's like an additional kind of separate list that people can enroll in and get daily drip emails for. Um, but besides that, I don't have any sort of heavy, crazy tech in there. A lot of what we do is within the community and it's sort of like off-site, if you will, quote unquote. Um, and so I believe it's heavily important, but not for sort of the stage that I'm at personally.
And Corey, how do you set your audience segments, like, and what matters the most to you when you study the customer?
Yeah, I generally look at a few things. First, of course, who they are. And so for SwipeFiles, I segment them by, are they an in-house marketer? Are they a freelancer or agency owner? Are they a founder, or are they like an entrepreneur, sort of creator? They're not a tech founder, but they're out on their own. They're creating content. Maybe they're a podcaster, someone like that, a creator essentially. And that really helps me understand where they're coming from, because that has a lot of assumptions in there. With an in-house marketer, you can usually expect that they're sort of like intermediate, maybe on like the level of sophistication or competence within marketing. They're definitely not beginners, but they're also probably not advanced. You're probably not going to get a lot of CMOs or VPs of marketing to join, a private community. That's just, they're going to be joining things like mastermind groups or, private kind of associations or things like that. It's not to say that that doesn't happen. It's just, that's generally the assumption you can make with a lot of in-house marketers. For agency owners and freelancers, there's generally a higher level of competence and knowledge. So they're probably like an expert at something, and they specialize in something in particular. And they're more looking for that community aspect and for accountability and even like lead generation. to make connections with other marketers and be able to put themselves out there and sort of market themselves for new gigs. For founders, you usually assume, they have no marketing experience background at all, and it's a very, new kind of concept. And so you have to cater to them that way. And then for creators as well, you generally get people who are much more adept at sort of content creation, but not necessarily like marketing strategy and audience building. And so it's, they're on the treadmill, they're creating a lot of content, but it's not in a fluid sort of strategy all encompassed together in what we would call marketing, right? And so I think that segmenting by who they are really helps. And then I also usually segment them by what they're looking for. So I'll ask them a question, like, what's the main thing that you're looking for or they came to the site for? And it might be community, it might be courses like I offer, it could be teardowns, it could be marketing examples. And then based on that, I might say, okay, cool, like why don't you jump over here if you haven't been here already? Or I'll just gather that information for me to know, okay, this is, this seems to be like the top reason. A lot of people are coming to SwipeFiles for the community aspect. Maybe I should market that more heavily or position the whole site around the community more heavily, which is actually what I've done. Um, so things like that, right, that help you understand, okay, it's just basic information, right? Like who, what, why, when, how, right? It's just like who is the person, what are they looking for, why are they here, how did they get here,
The
and what are they
five
looking for
five
in this moment
W's,
in
right?
time. Yeah, exactly. It's simple stuff.
So I'm digging more into marketing. Recently, you shared a post where you said you are obsessed with a line, learning like an athlete. Marketers should be practicing writing ads, coming up with campaigns, and studying buyer psychologies, according to you. So, what is your secret formula in designing a paid campaign or any campaign?
Yeah, there's lots of secret formulas. There's lots of frameworks and sort of mental models that you can use for marketing. All, each one can sort of cater to a different need or a different outcome or a different format or style. Um, I think generally, the best way to think about it is how can I take someone's level of awareness with the problem, with the solution, with who I am, what we offer, and then design an experience, write words, right? Do great copywriting that meets them at that level of awareness, and then gives them more awareness as they go down the page or as they read more of the ad or as they engage more with us as we go. Um, it was Eugene Schwartz, he talked about in his book Breakthrough Advertising, how there's generally 5 stages of awareness that every single sort of prospect will go through in their experience with you as a brand or as a company or as a product or service provider. And you start with completely unaware. And so they might not even have an idea that they have a problem or that, they're just perfectly fine, right? They're just going on their way. They don't have any needs or desires or, bleeding neck problems. And then we have problem aware. So maybe they're aware that there's something fishy going on or that there's something that's annoying them, that's something tedious, or maybe that there's something they've been asked to do, but they're not really sure what to do about it. They don't really know what a solution should look like or what the solutions are or how to go about exploring that. And then we have solution aware. So in this case, they've done some of their homework. They know who the players are. They know what the solution should look like, um, but they're not really sure about you yet, right? So they're looking at all the different competitors and alternatives, and now they're sort of trying to weigh the options, but they're not really sure how you fit in there. And then we have product aware, which is now that they're aware of you. They understand how you compare with the others, but they're not sure if you're right for them, right? And then we have most aware, which is basically they just need to know the deal. They just need to pull the trigger. Maybe it's more about timing or bureaucracy or pricing or kind of other general objections once you get to that final stage before closing. And so that's generally how I think about it, right? If you start at like the top of a landing page, for example, you can have a couple different strategies, right? This is kind of where the art of marketing comes in, because you can start a landing page by trying to get unaware people to become aware of their problem. For example, one of my clients that I work with is a scheduling tool called SavvyCal, which is a Calendly competitor. And so we could, if we wanted to, we could start with a headline that really tried to get people aware of the problem. We could say something like, the current scheduling experience is broken, or the way that scheduling is done now is broken, or even, Calendly, uh, you know, uh, leaves you hanging on, what you should be doing, or, there's something in particular about the whole scheduling experience. Maybe like we call out, for example, like, the people scheduling meetings with you have to do more work than necessary, right? So then that gets people thinking, and they think, oh, interesting. Maybe I didn't realize that, or do I have that problem, or is it something that I hadn't thought about before? Or you could start with something more problem aware. So people who are already aware, and now you just need to get them to solution aware. So maybe you could say something instead, like, this is what we currently have on the homepage, and this is our strategy, is you could say, hey, sharing your scheduling link shouldn't feel weird, because people are already, they experience the problem, they feel weird about sharing their scheduling link for whatever reason, but they're not really sure why or what the solution is, right? And that's actually, where SavvyCal comes in, because we basically make it as easy for the schedulee than the scheduler, for the recipient and the sender. If we really wanted to, and we really wanted to target people who already were looking for a Calendly alternative, we could just say something like, the best Calendly alternative, or, we fix scheduling, or, we're better, basically like we do X without Y, essentially. Like we help you schedule with your audience without making them do a bunch of work, right? That's because people already know that, the problem is that your audience is doing a bunch of work scheduling with you. So this is where the art comes in. But after that, right, every word after that is basically just trying to get people to be more aware, and push them to become sort of, on that more aware side of the spectrum, so that they're closer and closer to an ultimate sale, purchase agreement, deal with you.
Fantastic. So, next question, I'm really, really curious about this, Corey. So, you worked with Metrics. It's a startup, and this is basically company size is not more than 20, I suppose. And even with that, you could achieve more than 300K monthly visits, website traffic. So how did you achieve that? And I would like to know about your journey with that huge traffic. Even maybe this company size doesn't matter, but it's a big achievement if I look into it. So if anybody look into it. So I would like to know about your journey. How did you achieve that, and how did your team achieve that? It's a team effort, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that honestly, there isn't a huge correlation between, team size or content production size, between content output. Even that you see like a lot of these days, a lot of, single person teams, just creators that are just generating a huge, enormous
Right.
amount of traffic. Um, and that they're a team of one, right? They're the only one creating that content. So there's two different angles I'll take here. One is the literal sense, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about the strategy side of things. But for Barometrics in particular, it was a combination of really high throughput. So in the early days, Josh was writing a lot of the blog posts. He was creating, I think he was writing at least once or twice a week, right? And so you do that for 2 or 3 years, and now all of a sudden you have, 200, 250 posts, right? And each one of those posts can bring in even, 100 visitors a month. And now you're getting at, some pretty large numbers, right? About 25,000 a month. The second factor there is also just SEO, and the fact that one of the, I think the magic of SEO is that it's not just free content, because you can get, or it's not just free traffic. You can get free traffic by posting on social media, by posting on different, communities, by syndicating somewhere, but it's free recurring traffic, because it's people searching for something over and over and over again. And they're different people, right? So they're new, unique visitors. And that's really something that you're not going to find anywhere else. And so SEO is a huge part of parametric strategy, and just targeting a lot of keywords around metrics and SaaS companies, building a SaaS business, SaaS analytics, how to look at different themes around, growth, churn, retention, pricing, monetization, referrals, things like that, activation, acquisition. So SEO is huge. We had a big SEO strategy. A lot of a lot of that traffic was coming in through Google. And then the third part of it also was that, um, we had this sort of open startups movement. And so, one, there was a page where, Barometrics listed, we basically took our Barometrics account and made it public. So we were showing all of our metrics between MRR and churn rate and lifetime value and average revenue per user. And that's just, in general, drives a lot of traffic, just because people it's new, it's interesting, it's novel, right? People are want to keep up with the journey and follow along. But also, we had a lot of customers who were also open sourcing sort of their metrics and showing them publicly. So we had companies like Buffer and ConvertKit and Hubstaff, all these large companies who are doing their own marketing. And then that would in turn drive traffic back to Barometrics, right? And so then we have these external sources there. So those are definitely like those are the three big reasons why we got so much traffic. On a strategy side of things, though, I think really what it comes down to is you have your owned, rented, and borrowed platforms. And so your owned platform is where you have a direct relationship with your audience. It's your blog, your newsletter, your community, your podcast, and Barometrics checks all of those boxes. Great blog, right? We owned all of our content. We moved off of Medium actually and back onto a custom or back onto our own kind of root domain, barometrics.com/blog, right? Big newsletter. So we had about 25,000 subscribers, and every time you send out a post, right, that's new traffic that you can basically guarantee and sort of that okay, if we get about 20% open rate and then about a 5% click through rate, then it's going to be about this many traffic per post, and so that becomes pretty predictable. There's two podcasts. There's the Barometrics podcast, and there's also the Founders Chat, right? So there's a lot of owned platforms where it's basically like click send and it's in the hands of audiences. There's also rented platforms. So Josh had a pretty large Twitter following. Barometrics had a decent Twitter following as well. I have a decent Twitter following now, and it was small but growing back then. But we were out there in the community, engaging with people where they were, and that in turn also drives traffic back to the site, back to the owned platforms, back to Barometrics. But also, we were doing a lot of borrowing other people's audiences, borrowing using borrowed platforms essentially. So I was going on podcasts like this. I was writing guest posts. I was doing guest, workshops and webinars. We were also bringing in a lot of industry experts and hosting webinars with them. So they would bring their audience to Barometrics, and then now we get, kind of like mutual exposure, right? That's it's kind of a win-win, right? We share them with our 25,000 newsletter subscribers, and then they share us with however many they send through their newsletter and their, podcast, to their social media accounts, right? And so I think that, when people are first searching out and trying to figure out how do I get all this traffic and how do I reach sort of the goals and numbers that we need, you can't just rely on an owned platform, because that's really just going to be dependent on things like SEO and word of mouth, essentially. You have to use rented platforms to drive traffic back to those places, right? You post all of your blog posts on social media and you grow social media following, and you get other people with a social media following to share it on their, with their Twitter followers, with their LinkedIn followers, etc. But even then, to grow your social media following, you usually need to borrow other people's audience and you need to do some sort of collaboration, right? Go on podcasts, write guest posts, basically give back to the community in some way, where you can plug in. And now when someone else is hitting send on their 25,000 newsletter subscribers, you're the one that's receiving the benefit of that rather than just them. So it's a combination of them, right? But call it the orb framework: owned, rented, and borrowed platforms.
It's just a wow. It's a deep insight for us, even our audience. Therefore. So this is going to be a really valuable information for everyone who is going to see this interview. So coming to our campaigns, so can you share the most successful campaign of yours and the most share a failure campaign too?
Yeah, sure. So, man, the most successful one that I ever sent is actually really ironic because, this is how it always goes. It's always like the least expected, the one you never thought would work, that ends up being the one, sort of like the winner. And so when I first started at Barometrics, I spent like my first month doing a lot of customer research, sending out a survey, talking to customers on the phone, just trying to get a feel for the community, ask friends and industry sort of leaders what was going on, trying to get a lay of the land, if you will. And then the next month, I spent sort of creating a plan, and trying to validate some of my assumptions. And so actually, I wanted to send out an email to all past customers and expired trials to ask them basically, try to find out what are the gaps in Barometrics, what are the areas that we can improve, what's holding us back from growing more, because the company had sort of stalled and stagnated for about 18 months on the growth front, where MRR was just completely flat, basically. And so I knew that there was something there. And who better to ask, although it's uncomfortable, than people who were previously customers, right? Because why aren't they customers anymore? Um, and actually, one of the simplest ways to grow is not to increase acquisition, but it's actually to increase retention, because then you don't have to sort of fill that gap even more later on. But anyways, so what I did was I sent out an email to all past customers and all expired trials, which was a large number of people. I mean, it was in the, I think it was, it wasn't five figures, but it was definitely, mid to high four figures amount of people. And I just sent a really, really simple email. I think it was about 4 lines. It was, "Hey, I'm Corey. You might not know me, but basically I'm the head of growth, the new head of growth at Barometrics, and I'm just reaching out to get some more information about how we can better serve you." And I basically just said, I have one simple question for you. Um, what can we do to for you to uh, consider Barometrics again, essentially. So it was a really simple question. It wasn't, "Hey, why did you cancel?" And also wasn't, "Will you become a customer again?" But it was, "What can we do for you to consider becoming a customer again?" And I just said, "Hey, reply here. Thanks for your time. Sorry to bug. Appreciate it for your time. Looking forward to your response." And then the replies just started rolling in, and before I knew it, I had like 200 threads in my email inbox, all going at the same time
My
about
goodness.
what people are saying, replying. So over time, obviously the metrics improved, but I think by the end of it, by the time I was still getting replies, actually about 6 months later, too, people would go back and find it, or they would snooze it and remind it for later. And about 6 months later, I went back and looked, and I found that I had a 90% open rate and a 15% reply rate on that email. And after that, it's a little bit hard to quantify on, like, okay, how many. I know that some people end up coming back. Some people end up starting trials. We got a decent amount of just interactions. We got a ton of learnings and insights from that. But as far as like an email goes, just objectively, I don't think I'm ever going to beat 90% open rate, 15% reply rate ever again. So that was definitely the most successful one. Unsuccessful. Um, I'm trying to think. I mean, there was one time where, it's kind of a classic mistake of sending putting the wrong link in the call to action in an email. And it was one of those things where we were promoting a summit that we were a part of, where I was one of the guest speakers, and I had scheduled it like way in advance, but then I think the URL changed for the summit and for my talk, and I forgot to update it. So I sent it out to the email list, and then it was basically just like a 404. No one could find it. And so then I went and I was panicking, and went back to the summit page, found the correct URL, copied it, and then I thought that I pasted it, but I think that I hadn't deleted the full previous URL, and so there was like maybe an extra HT, or like extra slash somewhere, and I sent that out again without testing it one more time, because I was in a rush trying to get it out, and that was another broken link. And so in the same day, I sent two broken links in an email. And then I didn't even have the courage to do it again. I found, replaced it again, tested it, but I ended up sending it the next day, just because I was embarrassed, and I want, people to really excite people in the inbox, "Hey, this is the wrong link," or "This is the wrong link again," blah, blah, blah. And, anyway, so it was kind of a panicked moment, but that definitely wasn't fun.
So I would like to understand what was the subject line for your that campaign when you sent the mail. Uh, what you could do to get you again for the bare metrics.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I could go look it up. Um, but I think it was something along the lines of, um,
And I must
let's see, I'm
say
trying to
it
think.
it no it must not be your failure campaign. It must be your successful campaign, as you got two inputs from it, what you could do, and second, 90% open rate and 50% of reply rate.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that it was way beyond my expectations. I think it was just something um, like need to know one thing, or your input on one thing, um, or something like that. It was just like a very short, plain, but kind of ambiguous subject line that got people curious. But I can't. I'll maybe pull it up later if I can find it and send it to you
Sure,
afterwards.
sure, definitely. So paid or organic? Paid
Just in
campaign
general.
or paid? General? Both of them?
Oh yeah, I was sorry. I was just asking. Yeah, organic for sure. I mean, if you can't, again, I think that goes back to the owned and rented and borrowed platforms. Like, if you can own your platforms and you can also own the distribution to your own platforms, usually that's an organic way, right? Where you have a large rented platform, or you're borrowing other people's platforms, or you have some sort of, using SEO, or you just built like a brand that people are searching for. I mean, that's such a huge advantage. I think that's just like organic equals brand, and brand is, you can't really compete with it, right? Where other people are spending, tens of thousands of dollars a month to reach the size of audience that you are, with people just searching your brand name, it's an amazing, amazing advantage. So organic all the way.
Great. Uh, I don't want to wrap the session, but as time is the limit, so I'm wrapping up with last two questions. First is, who is your mentor in marketing? The person whom you look up to when you're in deep troubles.
I don't know if I would call them a mentor, probably more like a mentor from afar, but I'm just a huge fan of Seth Godin. I think he's way, way ahead of his time, and he continues to be a really good, I call him like a business philosopher. Like, he just thinks really, really deeply and critically about everything. And he's very thoughtful, he's very kind, but also, I mean, he's a really, really genius marketer, with books like Purple Cow and This is Marketing, and permission marketing, right? Like, he really understands it. He gets it. He knows what it is. And he also, I think, has a much different definition of marketing than most people. He says that marketing is an act of service. It's bringing your work to the world in a way that the world can receive it and accept it. I think that's a really good definition that, a lot of people assume, and they sort of conflate marketing with, trickery, manipulation, selling, a lot of false advertising. But marketing truly, if you look at the bright side of things, right? Marketing is about spreading a message. It's about getting your ideas into the world. It's about um, highlighting and showcasing valuable things to people. And so I just love Seth Godin and the way he thinks about it. He's been a huge influence on me.
Definitely. So, with the last question, what is your advice for an entry level marketers for their successful careers?
Yeah, for entry level marketers, my advice is always to get out there and build a portfolio of work, something to show that you can really point to and say, this is what I'm capable of, this is what I've done, this is my experience. So I think one of the things that happens is, even if you have a lot of experience in-house, marketing your own work is way, way different and more potent and powerful than marketing someone else's products or services or work. It's just a different level of ownership. It makes you think more critically. You really learn and absorb all the different things that are going on within, that project, within that circumstance, on a level that you can't get if you're doing it for someone else. And so I tell people, hey, just experiment, just get your reps and sets in, start a Shopify store and write a case study about how you drove traffic and you started something. And even if it completely failed and flopped, you didn't even make a single sale, you learned about Facebook ads and what doesn't work, right? What doesn't work is just as valuable as what works. Start a podcast, write a blog, a personal blog. Um, do an experiment where you try to do something from start to finish and you showcase what you did. There's also a really good idea of, Jack Butcher from Visualize Value has this idea of permissionless apprenticeship, where basically you just latch on to someone and you do work for them for free, where you do something that are in, they're tangential to them. Create a site that curates all their best work, right? If I'm a Seth Godin fan, I can go back and, hey, Seth Godin, or you didn't have to address it as Seth Godin, just be like, hey, I'm a huge fan of Seth. Here are all of his top blog posts, podcast episodes, and speaking gigs that he's done. And here's this like nicely kind of packaged thing up for you, and that showcases who you are, how you think, your abilities, right? But also just gets you experience to really learn. That'll really, really accelerate your learning, your ability to think strategically, and just get ahead of the game and get a leg up on anyone else out there looking for a marketing gig.
With this advice, Corey, I would say it was a really deep conversation to understand about course of marketing, and it was a learning experience for me too. So thank you so much for joining us today with CustomFit.ai, and we would definitely share the uh, your knowledge as much as possible to like any as much people to whom we can share with or to whom we can reach. So because these are the basic things which you need to follow, or maybe a fellow marketer should have, like should look
Yeah,
upon. So thank you
thanks so much for
so
having
much,
me. And
and sharing your knowledge with us.
yeah, absolutely. And I've also, appreciate you having me on. I only do this for podcast appearances that I go on. It's not like a publicly shared thing. I really don't do it anywhere else, even on my own newsletter list. But for podcast appearances, and especially for this one, I'd like to give out a little coupon code for anyone interested in SwipeFiles. So if you go to swipefiles.com, you'll find the membership, but you might also find an offer a little bit later on, sort of down funnel, because I'm a marketer, for a coupon. But if you use the code GrowthFit, you can get half off any one of the memberships for SwipeFiles. So join the community, get access to the courses, any other content. So it's just Growth Fit. You can use the coupon code when you're signing up, and you'll get half off any one of the memberships.
Oh, wow, that's great. Thank you so much for our audience, Corey. With this, I'll wrap it up the session. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us to the another episode of Growth Fit series. Thank you.